Your warm breath fogs the abandoned server room's cold glass as a cat's pale hand emerges from shadows. Not a tongue, a tiny dead hand, fingers splayed like a child's fingers frozen mid-grasp. It reaches from the inkwell darkness beneath the server racks, snagging the keyring from my numb fingers with a dry, papery snick. Black fluid drips from the ceiling, thick as tar, smelling of wet stone and old blood. It hits the server rack base with a slow, wet twimplink, the sound echoing too long in the dead silence. I stumble back, my boot catching the edge of a metal chassis. Clang! The metallic thud vibrates up my leg, a sound that shouldn't echo this far in the derelict station's hollow core. The molten lava-orange emergency lights cast long, ash-colored shadows that twist unnaturally on the peeling, heat-scarred walls. I blink, sour wet soil floods my nose, the scent of rotting lilies sharp enough to taste copper. Whoosh, rotting lilies. The Polaroid in my hand, the one I'd found taped to the dead mall's office window this morning, shows me asleep on the lumpy office chair. Last night, Fuji my office. The photo's edges are dusty, the image slightly blurred as if taken through a fogged lens. I blink again, the lilies smell intensifying, a physical pressure behind my eyes. Thvidimba drip. The black fluid on the rack base isn't just dripping. It's pooling, forming a dark puddle that reflects the orange lights like spilled oil. The Polaroid shifts. My reflection in the photo's glassy surface holds a knife. Not the blunt utility knife I carry, a long, thin blade, its edge catching the orange light. Blood drips from the tip. Drip, drip, drip. Each drop hits the image of my own hand holding the knife, a tiny crimson spot blooming on the paper. The cat's hand-tongue retracts, vanishing into deeper shadow with a faint, dry shoosh, leaving only the scent of wet stone and old blood hanging in the air. The server room hums a low, metallic thrumming that feels like it's vibrating the dust in my sinuses. It's the sound of dead machinery trying to remember how to breathe. I force myself to look down. The keyring is gone. My fingers curl into fists, the knuckles white against the ash-colored dust, coating my palms. This is bullshit, I think. The cynicism a familiar shield against the absurdity of the abandoned station, the dead mall, the impossible Polaroid, satanic panic era bullshit. Some mall security prank gone wrong, a dead cat, a bad photo. Fee, but the lilies smell is real. The taste of copper is real. The drippet of blood in the photo is real. I look at the Polaroid again. The reflection holding the knife doesn't blink, it doesn't move. The knife blade is now angled, the blood drip a steady, dark line. The drip, drip. Drip, drip. The sound isn't just in the photo. It's here, in the room, in my own head. The server rack beside me groans, a deep metallic creak that makes the dust on the floor shiver. I turn, the movement too fast, and knock over a stack of obsolete data tapes. They scatter like dead leaves. The thud of plastic cases hitting the floor unnaturally loud. The sound echoes, but the echo feels wrong. Too sharp, too clean for the dead space. The black fluid drips faster now, for clink, plink, plink, each drop hitting the puddle with a sound like a tiny heartbeat. I see my reflection in the puddle. My face is pale, eyes wide with the same disbelief I feel, but the reflection holds the knife. The blade is now held firmly, the point aimed down at the photo on the floor. Drip, drip. The blood on the photo's reflection is no longer a drip. It's a steady stream, dark and viscous, running down the image of my own hand. The lilies' smell intensifies, choking, making my throat tight. Thou rotting lilies. I blink, trying to force the smell away, but it's deeper now, woven into the air. The cat's hand-tongue doesn't reappear. The shadows where it vanished are deeper, colder. The server hum dips, then rises again, a higher, keener tone that sets my teeth on edge. The knife in the photo's reflection just slid home. The blood on the image is thick, pooling around the handle, but the reflection's hand doesn't move. It holds the knife steady. The drip of blood from the photo's reflection is the only sound left. Steady and final. Drip, drip, drip. The orange lights flicker once, casting the room in a moment of near darkness before snapping back to their molten glow. The puddle of black fluid shimmers with the reflection of the lights, and for a second, the reflection of the knife in the photo seems to shift, the blade now pointing directly at me. Duck, drip. The sound fills the room. The only sound, the only thing real. The radio. Its weight in my hand is a lie. It's not dead, not anymore. The static hisses like a serpent waking from hibernation, and I slam my palm against the viewport, cold glass before I can think better of it. The impact sends a jolt up my arm. The sound of my skin meeting the thickened pain, a dull thud, like a fist hitting wet clay. The stars outside. Don't twinkle, they twint up. Tap! Tap, tap, Morse code stitched into the void. Each pulse a slow, deliberate thump. Against my helmet, vibrating through the metal like a heartbeat. My fingers leave a smear of grease and blood on the glass, the residue sticking like tar. They re in the walls. Asterisk, the thought isn't to mine. It's the radio. Voice slithering through the speakers in a sound that isn't to sound. Just pressure, a weight pressing against my eardrums. I press my forehead to the glass, the coolness seeping through my skin, and the tapping sharpens. Not stars, not signals. Asterisk, something chewing the inside of the hull, gnawing through the ribs of the station, like it is made of paper. The air tastes like copper again, thick and metallic, and I swallow hard, my throat working against the phantom weight of it. The clock is in the wall, buried in the peeling ash, colored paint like a buried corpse. It's not ticking, it's soon breathing. The hands move backward, each second a shallow drag, the gears grinding slow and deliberate, 59 to 59. The numbers glow the same molten orange as the emergency lights, but the digits don't flicker. They twin pulsi like a heartbeat counting down. My breath fogs the glass above it, and for a second I swear the reflection of my face is on mine. The lips don't move when I speak. The eyes don't blink. Tick, tick, tick. Asterisk, the sound isn't coming from the clock. It's coming from inside my skull, a rhythm synced to the tapping of the stars, the grinding of the gears, the slow drip of something black and thick behind me. I turn, and the server room is still there, the black fluid pooling in the center like a still lake, reflecting the orange lights in broken shards. The air smells like rotting lilies again, the scent hitting me like a physical blow when I blink. My eyes water. The copper taste flooding my mouth, and I gag, my fingers digging into the radio casing. The static screams now, a high, keening wail that isn't T-sounded teeth, scraping bone, of rain hitting a tin roof that doesn't exist. A drip, a drip, a drip. Asterisk, the rain isn't outside. It's inside my helmet. The droplets hit the glass with a sound like wet parchment tearing, each one heavy, each one phonwrong, the stars something in the void, their Morse code a slow, deliberate message. Funyo mall is a grave, asterisk, the words aren't T-letters, they read bones. The letters are ribs, the periods are joints. The dashes are the hollow spaces between. I press my ear to the viewport, the cold glass biting into my skin, and the message repeats, slower this time, deeper. The radio cracks, the static twisting into a voice that is Tita voice. Just a shape, a formless thing pressing against my mind. You are it. Asterisk, the clock shatters. The sound is sudden, a clean break like a bone snapping, and the glass explodes inward, shards embedding themselves in my palm. The pain is sharp, bright, but the blood that wells up isn't red. It's black, thick, viscous. The same black fluid from the server room, pooling in the cuts like ink. The clock's hands spin wildly, the gears screeching to a halt, and the digits melt into the wall, sinking into the ash. Colored paint like they were never there. The stars outside stop tapping. The rain stops dripping. The radio goes silent. My palm is still bleeding. The black fluid drips from the cuts, slow and steady, and I watch it fall, the droplets hanging in the air before they hit the floor. The server room is still there. The black puddle is still there. The cat's hand, tongue is still there, coiled in the shadows beneath the racks, waiting. The radio in my hand is dead again, the static gone, the voice silenced, but the stars are still spelling, and this time the message is Morse code. It's my name. The locker door resists, the metal cold and slick beneath my hand. It smells first, a wave of something acrid and sweet, like burnt hair steeped in wet parchment. Beneath that, a deeper, more unsettling scent, the slickness of tearing skin, the faint ghost of something butchered and preserved. My fingers fumble with the latch, the metal biting into my numbskin. It gives with a groan, a drawn-out complaint of rusted hinges. The space inside is cramped, barely enough room to turn. A collection, not of uniforms or personal effects, but of taxidermy. A grotesque menagerie crammed into the small space, deer heads, foxes, a badger with a vacant stare, all mounted on chipped wooden plaques. They're coated in a fine layer of dust, the ash-colored particles swirling in the dim emergency lights, and one bear, a massive grizzly, its glass eyes fixed on something beyond the metal walls. It twitches. Not a violent spasm, but a subtle, almost imperceptible movement. A flicker in the glass eyes, a slight tilting of the head. I blink, trying to dismiss it as a trick of the light, a phantom movement born of exhaustion, but it happens again. The bear's head creaks, the sound amplified in the confined space, and its gaze seems to lock onto mine. My hand instinctively reaches for the radio, but stops short. The silence is worse than the static, a hollow, expectant silence that presses against my eardrums. I force myself to breathe, the air thick and heavy, tasting of dust and something else, something floral, sickly sweet. Lilies. Rotting lilies. The scent intensifies with each inhale, choking me, filling my lungs with a cloying sweetness that borders on nausea. The bear's claws scrape against the metal floor of the locker, a dry, rasping sound that sends a jolt of adrenaline through my system. It's not a full movement, just a slight drag, as if it's testing its weight, adjusting its stance. The other animals remain frozen, their glass eyes blank and unseeing. But the bear is watching. I kick at the door, trying to slam it shut, to seal myself off from this grotesque display. The claws drag again, closer this time. I can almost feel the pressure of them against the metal, the weight of the beast straining against its restraints. Then a coldness against the back of my neck, a delicate, almost hesitant touch. The cat. I don't need to turn around to know it's there. I can feel the weight of its gaze, the soft brush of fur against my skin. But it's not the fur I feel. It's something wrong. Something slick and smooth and undeniably whit-hand shaped the cat's tongue. That pale, unsettling appendage is licking my neck. A cold, wet sensation that raises goosebumps on my skin. I blink. The scent of rotting lilies explodes in my nostrils, overwhelming me. My throat constricts, making it difficult to breathe. The black fluid from the server room seems to coat the back of my throat, a viscous, metallic taste. The bear's head tilts further, the angle unnatural, almost mocking. Its jaw opens, revealing a row of yellowed teeth, not a roar, but a soft, wet succored, as the jaw moves. A sound that promises not pain, but consumption. I stumble backward, knocking into a shelf filled with smaller taxidermied birds. They tumble to the floor, their delicate wings snapping, their glass eyes scattering like broken jewels. The bear takes another step, its claws scraping against the metal, leaving deep gouges in the floor. And then I feel it. A sharp, searing pain in my ankle, a quick, precise scrape. The bear's claw, just a graze, but enough to break the skin. Warm blood wells up, but it isn't red, it's black. The same black fluid, staining my skin, spreading like ink. The lilies, the scent is suffocating now, filling every corner of the locker, every inch of my lungs. I can't see clearly, my vision blurring, the edges of the room dissolving into a swirling vortex of ash and shadow. I try to scream, but the sound catches in my throat, a strangled gasp lost in the oppressive silence. The bear is closer now, its massive form filling my vision. Its breath, warm and stale, washes over my face. It's not the teeth I fear, it's the eyes. The vacant, unseeing eyes that seem to hold the weight of centuries, the emptiness of a forgotten world. And in those eyes I see something reflected back at me. Not my own face, but a twisted, distorted version. A mask of horror frozen in a silent scream. The glass shard sinks into the cat's throat with a sickening shink hint. It is not like in the movies, no quick gush of blood. Instead, it is a slow, viscous ooze that seems to take its time filling the wound. I watch, detached, as if this isn't happening beneath my fingers, but on some distant television screen. The tongue retracts, revealing tiny lenses, blinking red. Hootrone echoes in my mind, hollow and mocking. Not an animal at all, but a remote-controlled biological drone used by the interviewer. The thought leaves me cold, the name sending shivers down my spine like icy rain on tin roofing. I yank the wire from its neck socket, sparks flying like tiny fireflies in the dim light. They dance and flicker before dying out, leaving behind a faint burnt smell that mingles with the rotting lilies still cloying at the back of my throat. The radio screeches to life, distorting cello tuning filling the locker room. My memory. A bitter laugh catches in my throat as I cough up copper, tasting blood. Sensory torture. They call it when you can't escape your own senses betraying you. The drone launches with a low hum, heading for the server room's black fluid. It hisses like an angry snake as it enters the ooze, the sound echoing around me until I'm not sure if it is real or another hallucination. I watch in horrified fascination as the fluid swirls, forming shapes that shift and twist before my eyes. And then, there it is, My reflection staring back at me from within the blackness. But it is smiling, wide, too wide, stretching across its face like a grotesque parody of joy. The lilies' scent intensifies, choking off my air supply until I'm drowning in their putrid sweetness. I cough again, this time bringing up more blood, dark and thick as tar on my tongue. My stomach churns at the taste, bile rising in my throat. My reflection waves, a slow, deliberate gesture that seems to stretch out forever before finally coming to an end. It is not real, can't be real. But there it is all the same, mocking me from within its obsidian prison. I stumble back against the locker door, knocking over more taxidermy birds in my haste to escape this unnatural parody of myself. Their glass eyes shatter underfoot, tiny jewels scattering across the metal floor like shattered stars. The bear looms closer now, its breath washing over me hot and rank with decay. It is not the teeth I fear anymore. It is those goddamn empty eyes filled with ancient hatred, reflecting my own twisted face back at me. And then everything goes dark. Not the slow fade of consciousness slipping away, but an abrupt, violent blackout as if someone flipped off a switch somewhere deep inside my mind. The floor gave way. Not a dramatic collapse, more like sinking into warm clay. One moment I was upright. The next, the linoleum yielded beneath my weight, depositing me in a heap. The air tasted of dust and something else. Something floral, sickly sweet, like lilies left to rot in a forgotten vase. The smell hit me first, a wave of cloying fragrance that momentarily obscured the ringing in my ears. I blinked, and the lilies, scent intensified, pressing against my sinuses, a physical weight. I pushed myself up, knees protesting against the sudden shift. The mall, or what was left of it, posters, faded and peeling, clung to the walls like desperate ghosts. "They re-in the walls," one screamed in a font that felt deliberately designed to induce panic. The 1980 screamed from every surface, a monument to a fear I could quite grasp anymore. The memory of Hunho I got here was fractured. Like looking through a shattered mirror, a door slammed. Futhud, a deep, resonant sound that vibrated through the floor and up into my bones. I flinched, instinctively scanning the corridor empty. Just the echoing silence and the relentless scent of lilies. I stumbled toward the sound, driven by a compulsion I didn't understand. I found myself in what must have been the manager's office. A single, bare bulb cast a sickly yellow light across the room, illuminating a desk littered with dust and the detritus of a forgotten bureaucracy. A Polaroid lay face down on the desk. I picked it up, the paper cool and slick against my fingertips. It was a picture of me, asleep. Here, in this chair, the bitterness rose in my throat, a familiar, unwelcome guest, another dream or just more static. Asterisk, the question felt hollow, a rehearsed line in a play I hadn't written. The door opened again. Subang. This time, the sound wasn't just a noise. It was a physical force pushing against me, stealing my breath. I turned, bracing myself for... What? I didn't know they marched in. Not quickly, not aggressively, but with a slow, deliberate purpose that was far more unsettling. A bear, a rabbit, a deer. Taxidermy figures, their glass eyes reflecting the dim light like tiny, malevolent stars. Their joints moved with a wet, sickening fee-creak, a sound that scraped against my sanity. It wasn't the swift, violent movement of a predator, but a slow, deliberate gait, as if they were performing a ritual. I backed away, bumping into the desk, sending a cascade of papers fluttering to the floor. The lilies' scent intensified again, blurring my vision, making my head swim. I wanted to scream, but the sound caught in my throat, a strangled gasp. The rabbit's head tilted, its glass eyes fixed on me with an unnerving intensity. The bear's breath, hot and rank, washed over me, carrying the scent of decay and something else, something indefinable, something ancient. My gaze fell to the deer, santlers. They weren't the smooth, polished bone I expected. They were wrong twisted. Metallic, cold. I reached out, a tremor running through my hand, and touched one. It wasn't bone, it was metal, and as I looked closer, I realized with a sickening lurch that the metal was formed into the shapes of my own broken keys. The keys ID lost months ago. The keys to a storage unit I could remember renting. The keys to a past I could quite grasp. The rabbit twitched its nose, a slow, deliberate movement that felt like a mockery. The bear's empty eyes seemed to bore into my soul, reflecting not my own fear, but a profound, ancient hatred. I stumbled backward, knocking over a stack of files. The papers scattered across the floor, revealing faded photographs, handwritten notes, and diagrams that made no sense. Symbols I recognized, yet couldn't place. A language I should understand, but didn't. The Lilies' scent became unbearable. A physical assault on my senses. I coughed, a harsh, racking sound that echoed in the confined space. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me, the walls closing in. I wanted to run, to escape this suffocating nightmare, but my legs felt heavy, rooted to the spot. The deer took a step forward, its metallic antlers glinting in the dim light. The rabbit let out a soft, guttural sound, a noise that resonated deep within my bones. The bear remained motionless, its empty eyes fixed on me, a silent judge. The tapping started, a slow, rhythmic suide. Tap, tap, tap. It wasn't tea coming from the deer. Hooves. It was coming from inside the walls. A subtle, insidious sound that wormed its way into my consciousness, amplifying my fear, eroding my sanity. The walls, they weren't solid. They were breathing. The clock's face was a liar's grin, its hands spinning backward like a wound-up toy left to suffocate in its own momentum. I hadn't realized I was holding it until the moment my fingers unclenched around its brass casing, the weight of it a sudden alien thing against my palm. The air hummed, thick with the scent of ozone. No, not ozone, something sharper. Like the inside of a battery after it's been drained dry. My breath came in short, jagged bursts, each exhale a puff of fog in the suffocating heat of the server room. The walls pulsed with a sickly orange glow, veins of molten light seeping through the corroded metal, plating like pus through rotting flesh. The rain had stopped, or maybe it never existed. Maybe the tap-tap-tap was never rain at all. I hurled the clock. The shatter wasn't a sound, so much as a vibration, a sudden, violent release of pressure that rattled my teeth. Glass exploded inward, not outward, as if the room itself had swallowed the fragments whole. The brass gears skittered across the floor, scattering like broken teeth. For a heartbeat, the silence was absolute. Then the tick vanished. My pulse hammered in my throat, a drumbeat of betrayal. The rain was never real. The thought clawed its way up my spine, a serpent of doubt. The server racks groaned, their cooling fans long dead, but the air still shimmered with the ghost of movement, as if the heat itself was alive. The black fluid dripping from the ceiling wasn't water, it wasn't even oil, it was something thicker, something that clung to the metal like tar, and when it hit the floor, it didn't splash. It too breathed. I turned. The axe was already in my hand before I registered the decision. The weight of it felt familiar, comforting like an old friend with a knife in their back. The blade was serrated, jagged, the kind of tool meant for splitting kindling or severing limbs. I didn't remember taking it from the wall. Maybe it was always there. Maybe I'd been holding it this whole time. The figures hadn't moved. The bear, the rabbit, the deer, all of them still standing in their slow, deliberate parade, their glass eyes reflecting the molten light like shattered stars. The rabbit's nose twitched, a wet-to-wet squelcher, that made my skin crawl. The bear's jaws parted, just slightly revealing a maw lined with teeth that weren't teeth at all, but jagged shards of blackened bone, each one glistening with something that looked like oil. The deer's antlers, my keys, twisted in the dim glow, the metal warping, reshaping itself into something worse. The tap-tap started again, not from the floor, but from the walls themselves. The plating rippled as if something was pushing from the other side, trying to get in. I swung. The scrape of metal against metal was louder than I expected, a sound like wet parchment tearing. The axe bit deep into the bear's shoulder, not with a clean saver, but with a sickening cruncher, as if the thing beneath the skin wasn't flesh, but something brittle, something brittle, something brittle. The blade didn't draw blood. It didn't even draw fluid. Instead, a thick, syrupy blackness oozed from the wound, dripping onto the floor in slow, deliberate droplets. The scent hit me first, copper thick and metallic, like pennies left to rust in a jar. My throat seized. The bear didn't scream. It didn't even flinch. Its head turned toward me, the glass eyes rolling back to expose the white beneath, like an animal in the throes of death. Then the lilies grew, not from the soil, not from the ground itself. Petals unfurled in a sickening spasm, their white blossoms stained with the same black fluid, their stems twisting like fingers reaching for my face. The copper taste filled my mouth, and I gagged, bile rising in my throat. The rabbit let out a sound, not a squeal, not a whimper, but a wet guttural, hisser like steam escaping a broken pipe. The deer took a step forward, its hooves clicking against the metal grating. The antlers, my keys, shivered, the metal groaning as they shifted, reshaping themselves into something worse. The tap-tap-tap-tap grew louder, more insistent, the walls vibrating beneath my feet. I swung again. This time, the axe caught the rabbit's neck. The blade didn't slice clean. It peeled, skin separated from muscle with a sound like wet fabric tearing, and the rabbit's head lolled to the side, its glass eyes still fixed on me, unblinking, accusing. The lilies erupted from the wound. A sudden, violent bloom, their petals thick and glistening, their scent choking the air. The copper taste was unbearable now, a physical weight in my chest. I retched, my stomach heaving, but nothing came out. The deer's antlers twitched, the metal screeching like nails on a chalkboard. The bear's body didn't collapse. It didn't even waver. It just stood there, its empty eyes reflecting the molten light, waiting. The footy tap-tap-tap was coming from everywhere now. The walls, the floor, the ceiling, all of it vibrating, all of it tree-breathing. The black fluid dripped faster, pooling around my feet, thick and viscous like tar. I raised the axe again, my arms trembling, my vision swimming. The lilies filled the air, their scent of physical force pressing against my skin, crawling into my pores. The copper taste was everywhere, coating my tongue, my teeth, my gums. I wanted to scream, but my voice was gone. All that came out was a wet, strangled gasp. Its hooves didn't touch the floor. They sank into the black fluid, as if it were quicksand, as if the thing beneath the surface was alive. The antlers, my keys, twisted, the metal groaning, warping, reshaping itself into something worse. The tap, tap, tap became a roar, a sound like 1,000 voices screaming in unison, a sound that vibrated through my bones, through my teeth, through my soul. The lilies filled my lungs, my throat by funmind. The copper taste was unbearable. I dropped the axe. The bear's head turned toward me, its jaws parted, wider this time, revealing the maw of blackened bone, the teeth like shards of glass, each one glistening with the same black fluid. The rabbit's head lolled to the side, its glass eyes still fixed on me, unblinking, accusing. The deer's antlers twitched, the metal screeching, warping, reshaping itself into something worse. The thodi tap 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 became a chorus, a symphony of sound, a sound that was everywhere, a sound that was everywhere, a sound that was twindy. The lilies filled my veins, my arteries, my hearted. The copper taste was everywhere, coating my tongue, my teeth, my thigh bones. I fell to my knees. The black fluid rose around me, creeping up my legs, my torso, my neck. The lilies bloomed in my chest, their petals thick and glistening, their scent choking the air, their roots twisting around my shufatat. The bear's breath was hot against my face, a rank, fetid wind carrying the scent of decay and something else, something ancient, something wrong. The rabbit's glass eyes reflected the molten light, unblinking, accusing. The deer's antlers twitched, the metal groaning, warping, reshaping itself into something worse. The tap-tap-tap was coming from inside me now. I screamed, but no sound came out. Only the tap-tap-tap-tap. Only the lilies. Only the copper taste. Only the black fluid rising around me, creeping up my legs, my torso, my neck. The bear's jaws parted wider, revealing the maw of blackened bone, the teeth like shards of glass, each one glistening with the same black fluid. The rabbit's head lolled to the side, its glass eyes still fixed on me, unblinking, accusing. The deer's antlers twitched, the metal screeching, warping, reshaping itself into something worse. And then the lilies bloomed in my side mouth. I taped the radio to the wall, its face a cracked grin in the dim light. My hands trembled as I stepped back. The echo of my voice, it's a simulation, still hanging in the air like a curse. The room was empty now, save for the taxidermy, creatures that hadn't moved since. Well, since forever, their glass eyes reflected nothing but emptiness. The cello tuning started again, soft at first, then building to an insistent drone like 1,000 strings vibrating against my skull. I wanted to scream, to claw out those notes from behind my ears, but all I could do was stand there, paralyzed by the sound that wasn't really sound anymore because it was foot inside me. I woke up in the parking lot. The asphalt beneath my hands was cool and rough, like a cat's tongue against my skin. No station, just the endless sprawl of empty buildings under an ash-colored sky. A cough wrenched itself from my chest, wet and heavy with the smell of sour soil. Lilies bloomed around me in shades of molten orange and black, the color palette of this fucked-up world. A cat dropped from a tree nearby, its body limp like it was made of rags instead of fur. Its tongue unfurled, not pink but pale, almost translucent, a small bony hand reaching out towards my face. I flinched away, but the drone's tongue followed me, its tip brushing against my cheekbone before retracting back into its mouth. I saw myself in a broken car mirror hanging from a lamppost. It wasn't Gabriel staring back at me. It was something else, something wrong. The reflection smiled, a taxidermy grin of jagged teeth and rotted flesh, and whispered, "You're the host." The cat hissed then, its body trembling like it had received some unspoken signal. Its tongue shot out again, aiming for my eye this time. I stumbled back, tripping over a rusted shopping cart filled with old newspapers. The headline screamed at me in bold print, "Phi local radio host found dead in parking lot." I was the host of what? The lilies grew taller around me, their scent choking the air, the smell of rotting flowers mixed with something else, something metallic, copper maybe, or blood. Cello tuning filled my ears again, louder this time, drowning out everything except for one thought. Fear this is all a simulation? The paper resisted, a brittle tear that felt too loud in the sudden stillness. I ripped the Polaroid again, harder this time, aiming for the face staring back at me. My own face, contorted in a grimace, a cheap plastic knife held awkwardly aloft. The image depicted me, not in the mall, but kneeling in what was unmistakably the server room, the one dripping with that viscous obsidian fluid. I was poised over something obscured by shadow, but the intent was clear, a predatory stillness. The lilies bloomed in my nostrils with each forceful blink, a cloying sweetness that coated my tongue with the metallic tang of old pennies. It wasn't a smell, it was a taste, a phantom residue left behind by the artificial flowers. The cat, that pale, twitching thing, padded forward, its paws silent on the stained concrete. It nudged the torn fragments of the photograph with its nose, then deliberately, almost meticulously, began to reassemble them. Rare writing. The pieces clicked together, not perfectly, but close enough. The image shuddered, the colors bleeding into one another like a watercolor left out in the rain. The knife in my hand in the photograph sharpened, the plastic replaced by something gleaming, something real. The obscured figure beneath me resolved itself. A mangled mess of wires and metal, a server rack torn open and spilling its guts. And then the words appeared scrawled across the surface of the Polaroid in a font that felt etched into my skull. You are the host. A mechanical twin-click echoed through them all, not from a single source, but from everywhere at once. Then another, and another, each one precise final, the sound of locks engaging, steel sliding into place. I turned, a frantic sweep of my gaze taking in the vacant storefronts, the polished tile, the artificial palms, every entrance, every emergency exit, every service door sealed, a network of interlocking mechanisms activated remotely. Quick click, click, click. The sound intensified, a cascading wave of metallic finality until it became a single deafening pulse. The taxidermy creatures froze, not in the way they always had, posed and lifeless, but in a new absolute stillness. The stag's head, the mounted bear, the flock of glass-eyed birds. They simply stopped. Their glassy stares didn't reflect them all anymore, but a void, a perfect consuming blackness. A pressure built in my chest, a tightening that wasn't breathlessness, but something far more fundamental. It started in my ribs, a subtle ache, then spread outward, a fracturing sensation that radiated through my limbs. It felt like expansion, like something inside me was stretching, reaching its limits. Then the crunchy, not a single, isolated break, but a chorus of them. A delicate fracturing that started in my fingers, then moved up my arms, across my shoulders, down my spine. It wasn't the sound of bone breaking as much as the sound of something fun giving way. The sensation wasn't pain. Not exactly. It was the horrifying realization that my skeletal structure wasn't meant to support this. Growth, this tun becoming duty fentua. I looked down at my hands, expecting to see them twisted and deformed, but they appeared normal. Too normal, the skin was smooth, unblemished, the veins beneath the surface almost translucent. But the feeling persisted, the relentless internal grinding. The lily's scent intensified, overwhelming, and I tasted copper, thick and viscous, flooding my mouth. The cat sat before me, its pale hand-tongue flicking out, not towards my face this time, but towards the Polaroid. It was absorbing the image, the words, the photograph itself, dissolving into the creature's flesh. Its body shimmered, distorted, briefly resembling the server room, then settling back into its feline form. The server room, the Polaroid had shown me sleeping there, but I hadn't been sleeping there. I'd been integrated. The server room wasn't a location, it was a state. A place of connection, and I was the conduit, the host. The realization wasn't a revelation, but a confirmation of something I'd always known, buried deep beneath layers of manufactured memory, a cold, hollow certainty that settled into the core of my being. The crunching continued. A slow, inexorable symphony of disintegration. The radio lies in fragments at my feet, its casing cracked open like a broken tooth. A sharp crunch echoed through the mall when I slammed it down, but now there is only silence. No rain pattering on the tin roof overhead. No cello tuning that seems to resonate from within my own bones. Just nothing. I stand amidst the rubble of what was once a bustling concourse, now reduced to a landscape of ash and shattered glass. The walls have crumbled, their orange hue fading like embers left untended in the cold dawn light. It is as if the very structure has been consumed by its own inferno, leaving behind only smouldering remnants. My ears ring with this sudden absence of sound, a vacuum that threatens to pull me under. I run anyway, my boots kicking up clouds of fine dust that catch in my throat and burn my eyes. My reflection stares back at me from every shattered window pane, distorted by jagged glass but unmistakably mine. Until it isn't. A taxidermy bear stands sentinel in the center of the mall, its once glossy fur now matted with ash. Its glass eyes seem to follow me as I approach, reflecting not my face but something else entirely. Something ancient and hungry, and then, slowly, deliberately, it steps out from behind the counter where it has been posed for decades. Whew, creak. The sound of its wooden frame settling onto the tile sends a jolt through me, more potent than any scream or snarl could be. This is not the creature I've known all these years, the one that stood frozen in time while tourists snapped photographs and children giggled nervously. No, this thing, it moves. Its tongue hand reaches out towards me. Not with menace, but curiosity, fingers splayed wide like they might a book page turned gently by an eager reader. And there it is, my face, stuffed and stitched onto the bear's palm instead of its own. My eyes meet mine in that pale, dead knuckle flesh, reflecting hatred back at me with such force I can taste it. I want to scream, but all that comes out are sour lilies flooding my mouth like bile. The scent is overwhelming, wet and dead, as if the flowers themselves have rotted from within. It fills every crevice of my being until there is no room left for anything else. Not fear or anger or even disbelief, but pure, unadulterated hatred. This isn't just about me anymore. It never was. This thing, this parasite, has taken everything. The mall, the cat, now even my face, and twisted them into something unrecognizable yet intimately familiar. It is a mockery of reality. A perverse mimicry that seeks to replace what once was with. This, I stare at myself staring back from those lifeless knuckles, and I know this is not merely an invasion, but a hostile takeover. And as the bear takes another step forward, its wooden joints groaning like distant thunder, I realize something else too. The rain hasn't stopped falling because there is nothing left to fall upon. The mole, my world, has been swallowed whole by whatever force summoned these creatures from their glass cases and taxidermy poses. And now that silence, it feels deliberate, oppressive. Like the calm before a storm so vast it threatens to consume everything in its path. There is no refuge here, not even within myself, for I am the reflection staring back at me, stuffing and stitches binding us together until there is no telling where one ends and another begins. And that hatred, it burns like molten lava through my veins as I stand ready to face whatever comes next, because surely something must come next. But for now, all we have is this silence. This heavy, oppressive silence filled with the promise of ash and echoing nothingness. I shove the bear into the server room with a grunt, the rotting lilies scent blooming in my throat as I push. Its wooden joints groan like old bones breaking, the glass eyes reflecting the molten orange glow of the ash-streaked walls. The drone, my cat, that pale tongue hand thing lifts from the floor, a tiny cold hand extending from its throat. It releases its signal, not a sound, but a pressure wave that makes the black fluid dripping from the ceiling pipes erupt upward, coalescing into a mirror where no glass should be. The surface isn't reflective. It's viscous, thick as congealed blood, and it shows Thiffandy me. Not me standing here, but Tootie Mai, in the mall, posed stiffly in the taxidermy case, eyes wide open, stitched into the glassy stare of a display. The smell hits me again. Sour lilies, wet and dead, flooding my mouth. I blink, and the scent intensifies, clinging to my tongue like rotten petals. This is the hallucination, I think the cynical thought a brittle shield against the horror. All the sounds were just my brain screaming into the void. The rain on the tin roof, the cello tuning resonating in my bones, all the hollow noise I'd mistaken for reality. The only sound now is the slow, deliberative ventillo string, vibrating in my own chest, my dying heartbeat. I reach for the mirror, fingers outstretched toward my own frozen face. The black fluid beneath my feet twine congeals around my toes, cold and sticky like wet tar. It doesn't pull. It twipenza, hardening into a substance that remembers the shape of my foot. I feel it seep into my skin. 1,000 tiny needles of cold. Permanent. I try to pull back, but the lilies are congealing my fingers now, the sticky residue sealing each knuckle, turning my skin to something pale and brittle, like dried flower petals. The smell is everywhere, inside my nose, behind my eyes, filling the hollows of my bones. I taste it, coppery and rotten, as the mirror shatters. Not with a crash, but with a soft, Tivin shatter like thin ice breaking underfoot. The reflection dissolves into 1,000 fragments, each piece showing a different version of me. The mall security guard, the taxidermy figure, the ghost in the glass. The drone's tongue hand retracts with a silent twin click, vanishing into its cat form. The drone. The spire's gone. The only thing left is the cold seep of the congealed lilies on my fingers, the molten orange light bleeding into the ash, and the cello tuning that is Pidsbeim. I stand in the server room, the black fluid dripping from the ceiling, the ash-streaked walls of the mall visible through the broken door. The drone is gone. The cat is gone. The mall is real. The station was the dream. I am the collection. My hand, now stiff and pale, is stuck in the congealed lilies. The cold spreading up my arm. I look down at the mirror fragments on the floor, each one reflecting the same thing, the taxidermy figure staring back, eyes wide, stitched into the glass. The cello tuning slows, the notes stretching thin, fading into the silence of the dead mall. The only sound left is the surricate of my own heart, counting down the seconds until the sun goes out. I try to scream, but only sour lilies fill my mouth, thick and wet, as the cold seeps deeper, hardening my veins into something that remembers how to be still. The mirror is gone. The reflection is gone. Only the congealed lilies and the molten orange light remain, and the knowledge that I am no longer Gabriel Thomas, security guard. I am the thing in the display case, the thing that was always there. The mall is real. The station was the dream. I am the collection. The lilies congeal. The cold is permanent. The cello tuning fades to silence.